This chapter is going to be fundamental in your exam. TDLR is very particular about infection control procedures, safety, and sanitation. Okay, you will see questions in this chapter on that portion of your exam. So I would definitely make sure that you do a lot of self-study in this portion. Make sure that you review this information and are familiar with it. So first things first is our objectives today are to understand state laws and rules and the differences between them. We're going to list the types and classifications of bacteria. We're going to define hepatitis and HIV and explain how they're transmitted. And then we're going to explain the difference between cleaning, disinfecting, and sterilizing. Cleaning, disinfecting, and sterilizing is going to be a major point because it's levels. There's levels to cleaning, sterilizing, disinfection. So you need to understand the key differences between cleaning something, disinfecting something, and sterilizing something. Okay, that's the type of information that's going to be on your exam. Key point right here. They're not really going to ask you how is HIV transmitted. They're going to ask you something along the lines of what do you do if there's a blood spill? Because we know these things are transmitted by blood spills. Okay, so it's more about the procedures and how to handle it, not the diseases and the bacteria themselves as much for your exam. We're going to list the types of disinfectants and how they're used, as well as talk about the disinfectants that we have. We're going to discuss universal and standard precautions. Is that new to anybody? Universal and standard precautions? You're from medical background, right? Okay, that's what I thought. So this is not new to you. What about you? Have you ever learned about them?
But not in depth.
Okay, so I like to say that's the thought that everybody has something. So always protect yourself. A lot of what we talk about is for the importance of client safety. But at the end of the day, I don't want your cooties. I'm doing this for me, like to make sure that I don't get what you got and you don't get what I got. Everybody has something. Universal precautions. Everybody is icky. I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure that I protect myself. And then describe how to safely clean and disinfect salon and spa tools and equipment. This is a big one because not properly disinfecting something basically avoids it. So in your case for a tweezer, if clients have, eye mites or something like that, and you rush through the cleaning process and think, oh, I'm just going to put it in the EPA because that's the strongest disinfectant, it's going to sterilize it. But you never cleaned it, it's null and void, so then the next person is at risk, as well as you are at risk. And then for you, as far as like extractors go, finger extractions, same thing. If you use an extractor tool and you put it in the EPA but don't properly wash it, you're voiding it out. So you're putting the next person and the next person at risk. So why we study infection control, overall knowledge, it's important that we know these things. Universal precautions, everyone has it. We don't want it. Long career, if you don't be mindful of these things, you will have a problem in the future. Regardless if it's a legal problem because someone's suing you, or like for me, example, not wearing a mask for the first part of my career has really affected me negatively when it comes to lash extensions. That's a precaution. Wearing that mask is a precaution that I chose not to take because it was uncomfortable and I didn't like it. And now I can't breathe. So in order to have longevity in this career, it's really important that you make sure you take care of yourself. And in turn, by doing that, you're going to be making sure that your clients are comfortable coming to you and that they're not going to have any problems. And then overall chemistry, mixing products inappropriately, not using products inappropriately, it basically voids it out. It's like if you get a car and they say, oh, if you put a speaker in, it voids the warranty. You're not going to go put a speaker in. It's the same with the bleach. If you mix bleach and EPA, it voids it, so you didn't do anything. You're not making it better. So actually knowing how to mix these things, learning the chemistry, learning what works with what, learning the solutions, that's just important for us overall. So as far as regulations go, many different state and federal agencies regulate the practice of beauty and wellness. There are a lot of people that tell us what to do. TDLR is a very big one. They ultimately control our licenses. Federal agencies set guidelines for manufacturing, the sale, and use of equipment. So TDLR determines what's in our scope of practice. They determine what we can and cannot do. There are other agencies that regulates the machines and the equipment that we can and cannot use. So TDLR may say, oh, you can do this as an esthetician, but then another agency say, but you can't buy the machine. As an esthetician, you have to be a doctor. Okay? It's different parties making different decisions that ultimately come down to what we can and cannot do. And then you have state agencies which regulate the licensing, enforcement, and conduct in your salon. So again, that's going to be TDLR. They're the people who will come in and inspect even the school. So twice a year, they come in. They make sure we're following all the policies and procedures, making sure everything is labeled, making sure we're using everything the right way, making sure the linen is clean, so on and so forth, making sure you guys wear your name tags, making sure the book with your licenses are properly organized. It's the devil is really in the details, and TDLR is very good about maintaining those things. So a lot of people do work without their license, but you're not supposed to. You got to make sure that you're on TDLR's good side at all times, because they will hit you with fines, and they go up real quick. I think the fine for a student being out of the building the first time is $500. The second time is $1,000, and I think the third time after that they can close.
What do you mean out of the building?
Out of the building. So you know how I say if you leave the front door downstairs, you clock out. If that happens 2 times, 3 times, TDLR can close the school.
If we don't clock out?
If you don't clock out and you're not presently in the building. So they can come at any point and inspect us. So that is our state agency. They regulate the whole state of Texas. TDLR is an important one to remember. So then you have OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. You being from medical, I'm sure you've heard of OSHA before, but they are going to control things like material safety data sheets. All product and chemicals should have material safety data sheets attached to them. So for example, even the glues that I have, they have material safety data sheets. Those sheets give you what's in the product, the associated hazards, the combustion levels, and the storage requirements. So a good example of this one is storage requirements. It's going to say how it needs to be labeled, how often it needs to be changed, how it needs to be mixed, where it can and cannot be stored. So let's say I've got Marvicide, for example, and it says it needs to be stored in a cool, dry environment, no lower than 40 degrees, no higher than 70. And I use it to clean this room, and I stick it in the window, and we have a usually hot day, and it burns it. Then every time I use it after that, it's no longer effective. So I think I'm doing something, and I'm not. So the material safety data sheets, which have been are provided by OSHA to make sure that we're actually following and using the materials properly and safely. You want to make sure that you don't just go off what someone tells you. Like, for instance, I tell you about the EPA. Oh, it's not supposed to touch your hands. It's bad for you. But it's bad for you because of what's on the material safety data sheets. It can melt your skin. But you won't know that just by listening to me or someone else. You have to get access to that information.
One quick question.
Mm-hmm.
If TDLR
Mm-hmm.
comes, we need to have all those in a book, all our material data sheets in a book for them to see?
No.
Say we're one woman show.
Yes. So for us, they just asked, for the school, they just asked that we have it in we have the bottle with the information on it to make sure it's a actual registered EPA disinfectant. But in the salon, I'd keep a book of all of my stuff and cleaning logs. So we have 2 books here. This one is where we keep y'all's licenses, and this one is going to be where we keep cleaning logs and things like that. So how often the EPA is changed and supposed to be changed, how often we actually have the restrooms cleaned, different things like that, how often the trash is being taken out. The little details, it's not as bad for like an eyelash salon because you only have that one room with your tools and implements. As far as a spa goes, you have so many other things going on. And that's one of the benefits of salon suites. They're so expensive, but you're basically paying for them to maintain the bathrooms and things in the laundry room so that you don't ever get caught with cleaning materials in the bathroom, a public restroom. So you can't have your EPA in the bathroom, which is like crazy, but I guess they don't want nobody to go in there and drink it. Which, why would you? But people are weird. But yeah, they want to have a log of it of some sort. And then EPA, which I just mentioned, is the Environmental Protection Agency. They register disinfectants, so they set the standard for what's considered effective disinfectant or cleaner. If it's not registered with the EPA, you cannot use it in your salon or spa. You only use EPA registered disinfectants. So EPA registration comes with an EPA registration number. All products will have it. It's considered hospital disinfectants. But I do want to read something from the newest book about that. So, I don't think it's in here. It might be a note. So let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. Can y'all see? I know it's far, but no. Where did it go? What the world? Okay, so it's not gonna let me do it that way and show y'all, but I'll just read it to you. We're talking about hospital disinfectants. It says the EPA registered many different types of disinfectant. There are 2 types used in salon, hospital and tuberculocidal. So there is a myth about disinfectant. So the term hospital grade is not actually used by the EPA. That's just a made up, that's a selling point. Think about it that way, it's a selling point. The EPA does not grade their disinfectants. The product is either approved by the EPA or as a hospital disinfectant, or it is not. There's no such thing as hospital grade. It's either a disinfectant approved by EPA and can be used in a hospital setting, or it's not. Period. There's no, oh, this is hospital grade. A lot of times you'll see things, and I'm sure it's in all industries, but especially this industry. Wow, they played me. There's notes on the bottom. Didn't have to close it. There's a lot of things you'll see that will try to sell you on something, right? It's like, well, this is hospital grade. There is no grade. It's either an EPA registered disinfectant, which the Environmental Protection Agency says this is clear to be used in the hospital, or it's not. So don't get caught up on the labels and the selling features and the words. If it doesn't have an EPA registration number, it's not good enough to use in your salon. So state regulatory agencies exist to protect the consumer's health, safety, and welfare. They create laws and statutes and rules and regulations. So what's important about this is, I like how it says it exists to protect the consumer's health, safety, and welfare. But at the end of the day, it's there for you. Don't think about it as, they're just looking out for the consumer. It's there for you. 1, so you don't get sued. 2, so that you don't get anything. You think about the reverse. It's just as important to make sure you stay healthy and happy as it is to make sure the client stays healthy and happy. So as far as I'm concerned, they can leave here with the germs they brought, but I'm not gonna give them any more. And that way, they're not gonna give me any. I'm gonna make sure that I'm always taking the time to do what I need to do to make sure the clients are always safe. With eyelashes, one important thing to do is have multiple sets of tweezers. Because it's impossible if you have 4 clients in a day scheduled back to back to disinfect your tweezers for 10 minutes in the EPA and then 10 minutes in the sterilizer. It's impossible if you have 1 set of tweezers. You have to book yourself 30, 45 minutes out. That doesn't happen in the real world. For Esti, same thing. Brushes, extractors, you need multiple sets of these things so that you're always in compliance. Everything is always properly being cleaned and you're not rushing the process. Because 1 minute too short and 1 minute over don't help. You see what I mean? Keeping it in for 9 minutes is not good enough. Leaving it in for 11 because you didn't do the step before is not replacing it. You know what I mean? So principles of infection. Preventing the spread of infections is easy when you know proper procedures and follow them at all times. So, we'll talk more about the proper steps of infection, when to wear that, like as far as the services go, when we pinpoint each service. But making sure you wear gloves, making sure you wear masks, making sure you wash your hands, making sure you wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, making sure you're changing out the draping on your table that you put your tools on, making sure you change the bed draping out, making sure you wash your blanket often enough. Those things are individual based on service, so we'll skip that detail and then we'll go straight into microorganisms. So potential infectious microorganisms that you need to be aware of are going to be bacteria, fungi, viruses, and parasites. So each one of these can have a negative effect on the body. And it's important to know that there's different types of bacteria, funguses, viruses, and parasites. So when you're in your SIN gauge, I want you to pay close attention to the differences between each one of them. So then let's specifically talk about bacteria salon disinfectants. So you have 3 types of disinfectants. So you have an EPA registered disinfectant, which is the standard. It has to be registered by the EPA in order for us to use in a salon. But the EPA will they will specify what each disinfectant can do. So a bactericidal disinfectant will destroy bacteria. It will have no effect on fungus, and it will have no effect on viruses. Then you have a fungicidal, which will destroy fungi, and you have a virucidal, which will destroy viruses. EPA determines the quality and what it's effective against. Bactericidal will destroy bacteria. Fungicidal will destroy fungus. Virucidal will destroy viruses. Knowing when and where to use each different material is what's important to you. Let's see if I can expand on that just a little more. Okay, so bacteria are called one-celled microorganisms. They can exist almost anywhere and can be seen with a microscope. So in Esti service, for example, one of the things that we use in a service is sponges. Sponges have pores or tiny openings. So because of that, they harbor bacteria. Have you ever heard anyone say that? Harbor bacteria? Basically, it holds on to it. It's an environment in which bacteria can thrive. So that's why after we remove certain products, we can no longer use them again, because that bacteria is going to sit in that sponge and grow. It cannot be sterilized. No amount of EPA, no amount of bactericidal substance will cleanse it enough to make it safe to use on multiple people. That's why they're single-use items, because they can harbor and grow bacteria. Bacteria exist everywhere at all times. There's bacteria on our bodies, there's bacteria in the air, there's bacteria on every surface we touch. It is what it is, it's a part of life. They say the more you come into contact with these things, the better your immunity is going to be. So it's okay that we deal with bacteria. There's good bacteria, there's bad bacteria. We just have to make sure that we're not spreading that bacteria from person to person. Good morning. The type of bacteria that we're going to have, again, good bacteria, which is going to be non-pathogenic. It's going to be helpful to the body or non-harmful. Then you have pathogenic, which is going to be harmful and disease-producing. This is what makes you sick. This is what keeps you healthy and living. We want as much good bacteria at all times, because that's something we need to go on through our day-to-day lives. So the types of bacteria, you have bacteria that are going to be one-celled microorganisms. They have both plant and animal characteristics, the harmful and the harmless. So pathogenic, non-pathogenic. I'm pretty sure that's on your exam for both of them. You have two types of transmission for bacteria. You have direct, which is transmission of blood or bodily fluids through touching, shaking hands, kissing, coughing, sneezing, and talking. And then you have indirect. This is going to be transmission of blood or bodily fluids through contact with an immediate contaminated object, such as a razor, extractor, nippler, or an environmental surface. So if someone has harmful bacteria, they touch this counter, and then I touch it, that's indirect. If that same person is harboring the bacteria on their hands or on their body, and I touch them, that's going to be direct. Does that make sense so far to everyone? You can still control the transmission of bacteria. How do you think you do that? Washy, washy. Absolutely. That's the best that we can do. Wash our hands. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I know it's weird, but I don't like door handles. I don't know why. I just don't like door handles. Because you know that's something that everybody touches. Like, no, how many people truly touch this one part of the counter? You know? Well, it's not likely that 100 people touch this, but I know 100 people touch their front door. So the best way for us to protect ourselves is to wash our hands. That's really all that we can do. And then on top of that, making sure that when you're dealing with someone, you are wearing a mask, you are wearing gloves if someone's got some type of infection, you are sending people home, you are canceling appointments. They say all money's not good money. I have people that are like, oh, well, I'm not feeling well, can I still get my appointment? No. What makes you think I want your cooties? You not feeling well, I don't want to feel not well. Stay home, keep whatever you got. I'll see you when you're feeling better. You have infection when it comes to the cause of disease. So infection is an invasion of body tissues by disease-causing pathogens. You have germs, which is a non-scientific synonym for disease-producing organisms. You have microorganisms. These are going to be any organism of microscopic size to submicroscopic size. You're going to have parasites. The thought of parasites makes me go like this. You're going to have parasites, which are organisms that grow, feed, and shelter in or on other organisms, which is referred to as the host. The common flu can be considered a parasite because it infects. You have a host who's carrying it. Well, that's not technically a parasite, that's still a germ. But you have a host that's carrying it. They can be symptomatic or non-symptomatic. And then they can spread that through direct or indirect contact. And then the next person actually get the infection. You have toxins, which are various poisonous substances that are produced by some microorganisms, which are bacteria or viruses. Toxins can be fumes, like the fumes that are created by the natural curing process of the adhesive. You can have toxins that can be something, as simple as a germ that has been airborne. And then you have a virus, which is a parasitic submicroscopic particle that infects and resides in cells of microbiological organisms. So a virus is capable of replicating only through taking over the host cell reproduction function. So that's how your kids get sick. Playing with their sick classmate, hugging them, kissing them, holding their hands, sharing their juice box. Up until I was probably, I'd say 21 or 22, me and all of my family shared like drinks, food, like for a very, very long time. And then, I don't know, something just like flipped. And now I cannot. I can only share silverware with my spouse. Like that is the only, and it's like, if you got it, I might as well get it. We can die together, it's fine. We could spend 2 weeks in bed together with the flu. But like my cousin, I just remember growing up and like, she would come up to my plate and just like take my spoon and eat it. And it was nothing. Or drink out of my drink, good morning. But now the thought of that literally gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like I will hit you if you drink out of my drink. Because I can't drink it anymore. It's infected. Universal precautions. Everybody has it. I don't want it. Keep it.
I used to hate in high school when the girls would share chopsticks.
Like, right?
Oh.
I did that. I was that girl.
I did that, and I'm like, ooh.
I was that girl.
Covered in mono.
Oh, like I don't know how I got like lucky and I never had like stuff like that, cause that was just crazy.
I didn't even let my baby drink after me, or I couldn't drink after she slobbered all over the drink. I was done with it.
You're like, and I don't care if you're my toddler, go away. Yeah, it's up until.
Toddlers are gross. In your defense.
But who? You don't really, especially when it's your kid. Like even my nieces, like I wouldn't care, but it just flipped. At some point in my life, I was just like, I don't have time. I don't have time. No. So these are going to be different types of bacteria. These are the classifications of them. We're not going to go through each one because it will literally take up the rest of the week. In your sin gauge, it is very important that you go through these and study them. Estheticians, this is on your exam. Do you hear me? It is on, I'm not saying it may be. I'm not saying it could be.
The different types of bacteria
Yes.
that are on our exam?
This is on your exam. You need to be able to identify the different types of bacteria.
Hello, Greg.
Good morning. Back to you in the studio, Greg. Like I saw it, I was like, what is she? I was like,
Does it show pictures or is it just explain?
it.
Both.
I think I remember when I took it. I think I got a picture. Oh, good. We're making great time. Yeah, I think I got a picture, but I'm not quite sure. But I know it's on your test, 100%. So you have the first one. Are y'all gonna write them down, or y'all just gonna go and Cengage? Because I can do it slow enough for you to write it down.
If nobody else, I was just gonna write down that bacteria is on my exam.
Perfect. Okay. First one. Did you have to learn these things to be a nurse?
And
Do you
we-
feel like it was difficult? I'm sorry. Like, did you learn more in depth past this, or did you learn just this level?
You know, we had to take microbiology, so that was
Oh, okay.
a class.
Okay, you took a whole class on microbiology.
And we're
Not a
required to
fan.
have some kind of some kind of solution that
Mhm.
can take, that's literally staphylococcal. Right?
So what you're talking about is this. Y'all missed it. Bactericidal will destroy bacterial. Fungicidal will destroy fungus. Virucidal will destroy viruses. That's what you're talking about. Yes.
That we're required to have all day, every day on our envelopes.
Absolutely. If TDLR are watching here right now, they're going to ask
They
for
wanna
an
see the
EPA
bottle.
registered disinfectant. So barbicide is different from marvicide. Cavicide is different from barbicide. There's multiple different types of disinfectant. Do me a favor. Scroll through these while I go get the disinfectant so that y'all can write down the names. If you want to write them down. I'll be right back. I'm going to get the actual disinfectants because we have more than one.
You know it by heart.
No.
Oh, wait.
I could probably,
She's like, I took the class, but that was a while back. I passed the test already. I followed that in the
It's
back.
for the Esti license. I don't know if it's for lash, right? You just need certification. You probably need to know
This,
those.
I don't think you know this, you won't need to know this in detail, but I know for a fact it is on the SD.
Is this an open note test?
That's
Only
cute.
if you wrote them on the bottom of your shoes.
What's your version of open note? Because I can teach you some ways
I'm gonna have
to
get
make
some-
it open
I'm
note.
gonna have to get some Google glasses.
Yeah, it really just depends on your ethics. Okay, so I pulled out two. You have Cavicide, and I believe the second one is Barbicide.
Yeah.
It is, okay. So, the Cavicide says, ready to use, it's bactericidal, fungicidal, virucidal, and tuberculocidal. I know this will kill all of those types of pathogens. This one says germicidal, pseudomonocide, fungicidal, and virucide. So if someone has tuberculosis, this won't cut it.
I distinctly remember we have to have something that's tuberculocidal.
And from TDLR,
Yes. I remember
it-
like tuberculosis is like the harder to kill, and that's
Right.
the type of cleaning solution we Estes have to have.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
Could it be because you're a salon suite?
Well, we just got hit by TDLR in July. So they
Okay.
went through each and every suite and inspected them. And I 99% sure my Estes that only had barbicide were running to mix the recommended bleach water mix to make it tuberculocidal.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's something that I need to pull up because I wasn't familiar with the tuberculocidal. I just keep two. I always keep two versions because
You
one of
like
the
that.
things
You gotta
one of the
vote.
things I will say about TDLR is they will give you a chance
To correct it on the spot. That's
to
what they were doing.
correct
They
it
were
on the
running-
spot.
They were running to get bleach and their notes and put it all together in a bottle.
So we have bleach, we have 2 different types of disinfectants, we have the ability to make a label. So if they came in here right now and was like, oh, this isn't right, give me 2 minutes, go look for something else, and by the time you turn back around, it's gonna be right.
Yeah.
Because they're not trying to fail you. They're not trying to hurt you. They're not trying to fine you. It's benign neglect. When it's like, they go into these nail shops and it's like,
They don't even have the product.
yeah, they don't even have it. Like they wash it with soap and water and put it and use that scraper on the next person. That's when it's a problem. But TDLR overall, they want you to succeed. They want to make sure that you're familiar, and if something's not right, they'll give you an opportunity to fix it. And you'll be surprised how many people don't know.
They're very gracious. Remember being terrified of them until we had our first inspection. And then I remember thinking I had to flirt the whole time. But really, I was like, okay, everybody, I'm going to distract him with boobs.
Everyone,
I
I'm bringing out the booth.
Who's got the biggest chest? All right, let's
Exactly.
go. And so, and then, they used to inspect in one when it's a big salon like mine.
Mhm.
Just one guy would do all 52 suites. This time around, they hit us with 5 different inspectors.
Oh, that hurts.
And that's a whole lot of places to put my boobs in one place.
Yeah, yeah.
They had actually called us a month in advance. So they called a month in advance, said we're gonna be there July 31st.
Are you serious?
Serious as a heart attack.
That is amazing.
And they were like, we wanna get in and out, please look on our website at the top deficiencies that we find, try to get those corrected before we get there. So I gave my people 30, but my STs are still running around trying to pour bleach water in
Yeah.
a spray bottle.
To make sure they have
Yeah.
what they need. They're really, and one of the things that they told me as far as inspections go when they came here, because they had to do an initial inspection, and literally everything they give you a list first off. They tell you what you need, but everything on the list, as she asked for it, I was like, it's here, it's here, it's here, and just like walking around, she was like, you're the most prepared person to have done that I've done this inspection for, and they do the state, and I was like, what do you mean? She's like, people just don't know where stuff is. How do you not know where it is? This is yours. Like, you were solely responsible. If somebody comes out of there and they got a wax and they get, let's say they get a Brazilian and they get a herpes outbreak. Even if they had herpes and they knew they had herpes and they sue you, you still have to prove you didn't give them herpes. How are you going to prove it? Well, I change my wax like this. I don't double dip. This is the law. This is how I clean my supplies. These are the last 50 clients that I've seen. Every client that I saw that month. This is the wax that I used. This, you can test the wax for it. They will come and scrub that place clean, and if they find a speck of herpes simplex, you're at fault. So how can you not know? It's very simple. They give you everything you need to know. That's why the types of bacteria, really, really hit those hard and really make yourself familiar with them and how they differentiate from each other when you go and do that chapter in chapter 5. For lash, it's week 1 and 2. For Estes, it's week 2. And it's the only chapter in that week for Estes because you need to know these for your exam. So let's move on to growth and reproduction. So bacteria is active and it takes 20 to 60 minutes to reach full growth. They divide into 2 cells, which is called the process of mitosis. You have inactive or spore forming, and these are resistant to adverse conditions. That's where the tuberculocidal comes into effect. It's resistant to adverse conditions. So it's no matter how hard you try, it's gonna hold on for dear life. Example I gave of the sponges. You can soak a sponge for 4 days in tuberculosidal, but because that sponge has spores, it makes it very easy for that bacteria to keep reproducing.
It goes dormant.
It could just sit there, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's why you have single-use items. That's why you have multi-use items. And then multi-use items, even with that, you have to make sure you're buying items of good quality, because if they can't properly be cleaned and they will easily harbor bacteria, you're not doing yourself any favors. Bacterial infections. So the type of infection is going to depend on the type of bacteria. Okay, so this is another one that I want you to focus on as far as the types of bacteria go. So Staphylococcus, is that how you say that? So I've heard it both ways, and how do you know which is the right way?
It's just like, however you choose to say it.
That's crazy. That's like so there's no universal.
I've always heard it Staphylococcus.
Yeah, I've heard it Staphylococci and Staphylococcus. So I'm like, how do you determine which way to say it? So as a nurse, there's no, you wouldn't get dinged for saying that.
Hear it, I would hear both ways.
That is crazy. See, that would freak me out because I need to know. Like, I need to know
One way.
what is right and what is not right.
Google the pronunciation.
I do, and you can get it depending on the video you find. It'll say it both ways. But that's gonna cause food poisoning, toxic shock syndrome, MRSA, local infection, systemic infection or disease, contagious or communicable diseases. So go through those as well in your SIN gauge. Same thing for viruses. Viruses live by penetrating the cells, so they consistently penetrate cells. They're resistant to antibiotics. That's why they say the common cold, you just gotta your body's gotta take it back. Can people die from viruses?
What?
Like HIV kills you.
No, it's what
What comes from it?
what comes from it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because your immune system, so
You don't die from HIV. You die from
pneumonia
what
once you have
what
HIV.
it causes. 'Cause
Okay.
It breaks down your system so much, and then like you'll develop cancers or you'll develop pneumonia.
Okay, I see what you mean. And then because there's no antibiotic that can defeat the virus, because the virus goes unchecked, it basically messes up everything else. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm so happy you're a nerd. It's that some things I think you shouldn't assume, and I'm big on don't just guess. Like, you need to communicate with someone who knows how these things work. Like, as an esthetician, you're only expected to know. So you're only expected to know this, you know. But in order to truly communicate that to other people, you have to ask different questions. You have to communicate with other people because it makes sense how a virus works, but I'm not a medical professional. I've never seen it happen in real life. And that's why when someone calls and says, oh, it's just a cold, but a cold to you, I could get the version of that virus that my body is not strong enough to fight.
And you develop pneumonia.
And now I get pneumonia and I die because you had the common cold. Again, it goes back to what I very first said this morning. Y'all weren't here, but you're not doing this just for the client. This is for you. I want to live. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want nobody's cooties because it's not worth it to me, especially in this industry, because you don't get paid if you're not working. If I'm not at work, if I'm not waxing eyebrows, if I'm not doing Brazilians, if I'm not doing lashes, I don't get paid. So your virus that you're telling me an antibiotic can't fix, I'm not about to risk it and put every other client that comes in danger,
And my kids.
and my
My
kids
husband.
and my family in danger, because we know, well, like we said earlier, y'all weren't here, but I can spread this by touching the doorknob after you. So stay home, get better, and then come back in. So then you have bloodborne pathogens, which are going to be hepatitis, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Continue to explore those as well, each one of them individually in your chapter 5. HIV/AIDS passes through the blood and bodily fluids through unprotected sex, sharing of IV needles, accidents with needles, cuts, and sores. The method of not transmitting the disease, hand holding, hugging, kissing, sharing food or household items, and can be infected for many years without symptoms, so being asymptomatic. As a medical professional, is there anything that the general public doesn't understand yet about this virus that you could shed light on in your experience?
I haven't dealt with a lot of HIV or AIDS, but the only thing that you can do is protect yourself, and wash your hands, and just treat everybody as if they have AIDS.
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Treat everybody as if they have AIDS.
Have you ever been in a situation where you've been accidentally stuck with a needle or anything? No.
But it happens quite a bit. And then you just have to go and start treatment. You have to start treatment as if you were infected.
Really? So if you start treatment, can that prevent it, or okay?
It will. If you go right away, boom, I got stuck, I'm going straight over.
It's like one of my biggest fears.
Yeah. And how long do you have to do treatment?
Maybe 6 weeks.
I would literally not be able to sleep every day for 6 weeks. Probably the rest of my
Forget
life.
that. In the back of your head, it's just sitting there going, maybe it's not symptomatic yet. Maybe it's
Right.
dormant and hanging out.
While you're
It's
going
gonna
over
creep
the
its head.
It's creeping up your arm.
Oh my gosh. How scary. Y'all don't get paid enough, in my opinion.
No.
Because to have to deal with that. Skippy, skip, skip. Okay, and then fungi, microscopic plant parasites that includes molds, mildews, and yeast that can be spread by unclean implements or for not preparing the nail plate before applying enhancements, and more common on feet than hands. This shocked me personally because I didn't realize how much of a risk nail technicians had when it came to like fungus. Because, I'm thinking, pedicures, that's when you can get a foot fungus. But you can have fungus in the nail plates of your hands and not know. So it was my excuse to get consistent pedicures and manicures for a while. Because I was like, I got to make sure I don't have fungus. But it really is a very dangerous, it's not necessarily dangerous, but you definitely have to be mindful and be cautious that these things exist. So you have to protect yourself, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to make sure that the places you're going to are taking care of themselves.
That's the key. And it's so, once we go through this chapter and once we see it, the more you educate yourself on it, the more red flags you see when you're at different places.
Yes.
And you're just like, man, oh God, like even, the kids all had mani-pedis as some girl's birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking my teenagers and I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I just bring a little bottle of bleach to swish it around the whirlpool? I mean, and you can't like that, but I'm looking at all the things that I know that they're doing wrong. Thank goodness they're just shuffling them in and out, not really working them.
Right.
Because it was like 8 girls.
Right.
But cringing on the inside, because you see it. You see all the things that people don't do.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
I've seen people double dip in wax
Oh, yeah.
as I'm standing in line to get an eyebrow wax. And I was like literally just shocked because I had never seen it. You hear about it, but I had never seen it. And I literally was standing there. It was like a tiny room.
So my client's here, but we don't have any towels for the facial.
Okay, give me just a second. You're literally standing there. I'm standing there. The lady brings the other lady in. She lays her down. She does the wax, and she double dips. The whole wax. Not body waxing. She was doing facial wax only.
But still.
But if you're double dipping facial wax, you're double dipping body wax.
You're double dipping.
You're doing it.
That's
I
what
know
you do.
you're
That's
doing
your
it.
habit.
Yeah.
That's how you do things.
Yeah.
That's your standard.
Took me a long time to be able to be okay with people threading me because I could see the thread in their, like they hold it with their mouth.
Yeah.
I have 3 threaders in my salon and it's very popular and I'm still like, no, I'm gonna shave.
Yeah.
Shave.
But the thread that actually goes in their mouth
it doesn't ever touch you.
Never
It
touches
took
you.
me a long
I felt-
time to
I
understand
felt it
that.
before with, the lady, she did this.
Yeah, that's because of how
No.
she did it. So I have been
No.
taught how to thread by actual Indian women. They learn to do this at like 2.
Yeah.
That
On each
thread
other.
should never,
Touch-
ever touch the client after it's been in your mouth. They are religious about it. They do not play that. But these salon things get so popular so fast
The training is mediocre.
that the training is like bad already, and then people already have bad habits. So it's just a really, really, really bad situation all around because it only gets worse. You know, what do they say? Stuff falls downhill, and that's how it is. You know, you're only as good as the person who trained you. Ultimately, there's no way. I've seen people thread, and I didn't like thread.